Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Good? Cold? I can't hear you guys. How's everyone doing? Good? There we go. That's a little better. Well, my name is Rudy. Some of you know me. To some of you, I might be new. But tonight, we're going to be talking about the mirror of life. That's the topic of our conversation tonight. So I've been hearing from a lot of my friends how life is difficult, how it's difficult to change or to accomplish anything or to accomplish the smallest of the goals. And it's so based on the conversations that we've been having, I decided to bring this little book today. So it's called Thought in Life, and this is the book that the talk is inspired on. It's a little book. It was psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier, which is one of the biggest Brazilian mediums, and it was dictated by the spirit Emmanuel, which happens to be his guide. A very evolved spirit who's blessed us with many teachings and books, things that we use on our day-to-day life. So it is, at first glance, a very small book. Like, you can literally sit down and be done with this book in less than 3 hours. That's how fast it would be to read it. The problem is the content, or the solution is the content in the book. There is no way you can sit down, read this book, and absorb at least 1% of what it's trying to teach. It demands a lot of time, a lot of attention. It talks about life in general. There's 30 different subjects that go from instruction, education, faith, work. There's body, cradle, family, children. So anything that has to do with living life, it talks about. So not even one little topic we would be able to do in 30, 40 minutes, let alone the entire book. But I highly recommend reading this book. You can find it up front if we have a few copies. I'm not sure if we have any left, but you can also find it on Amazon. It's a great reading. I have read this book probably 10 times, if not more. I have it in audio, so and I drive a lot. So I cheat like that. I'm always listening to this. But there's a lot of teachings. So I highly recommend you guys grab a copy of this. Well, it's a very interesting time of the year right now. So we are 3 weeks into January, right? I love this first month. Did anybody have a New Year's resolution here? New Year's resolution? Don't be afraid. Yes? Very good. So every year, like many of my friends, I come up with a New Year's resolution, right? I just love the end of December. So December, January, you have two groups of people. You have the ones that get to the end of December and all they do is complain about the year that is ending, right? It was a horrible year. I couldn't do anything. Nothing was good. And for some reason, the next day is the solution, right? It's a new something. It's just the next day. But in our head, it's the opportunity for something new. So we make plans and everybody come up with New Year's resolutions. And so do I. So I came to realize that what I am doing every year is setting myself up for failure. I have never been able to complete one of my New Year's resolution. I start strong like everybody. Yes, I'm going to do it. This is the year I do it. It gets to February, I sometimes don't even remember what it was. That's how bad it is. But this year, it's different. It is. This year is different. I have promised myself that I'm not going to set myself up for failure. I am going to do it. And I'm doing well. It's been 3 weeks into the year, and I have kept my promise. You guys curious? No? I promised myself not to have one this year. And it's liberating. I've never accomplished something so well like I have right now. But anyways, why am I talking about New Year's resolution, right? Like I said, it's so hard to keep one resolution, right? Let alone change our lives. So to do one thing is hard. Imagine if you want to turn your life around, right? How easy would that be? Or how difficult would that really be, right? But are we living the lives that we want? Are you living the life that you want? Are you living the life that you're working for? Right? For now. Okay, so we are working on a life that will take us where you want, maybe, right? If for now that's the life you're living. Well, here's what we need to understand, right? People want different things in life. So somebody wants a fast car, a big house, money, power, great body, and we go through distances trying to accomplish these things, and sometimes that's what we fight for. And there's a whole industry in the world right now that promises to give you exactly that, right? So from the end of the 90s on, have anybody heard of the law of attraction? It's exactly what it is, right? So if you go on the internet and you type law of attraction, or you type how to have the best body ever, how to get a better job, how to be a millionaire, you will get hundreds of texts, all claiming to give you that. They all say the same thing, right? Set your thoughts to becoming rich. Set your thoughts to having a big house, to having a fast car, and you will make it happen. Like, it's that easy, right? If you change your thoughts and change your reality. It's pretty much what they're saying. Which could work, right? But it doesn't stop there, because there are several things that we need in order for that to happen. So thinking about it, it's not going to make it happen. It's a beginning, right? But you also have to work hard for it. And we all know that without work, there is no benefit. But we don't care, because that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for fortune, for great things, so we will keep on doing whatever they tell us to do in order to accomplish that. Now let me ask you this. You have the life that you want and that you're chasing and the things that you're working for. But is that the life that you should have? Is that the life that is going to benefit you the most? Now, how do we know that? How do we know that if the life I'm chasing is the life that I should have, right? Is it power that I want? Is it fame, right? Maybe a new husband, anybody? What is it that we want, right? The things that we're chasing, are they necessarily the things that we should be looking for? Is the life that we should be living? In order for us to answer that, we have to know ourselves. Because by knowing ourselves, we would know what our needs would be and what would add to our lives rather than taken away, right? Because sometimes the things that we're chasing, they are not the things that will add anything. So the fast car, the power, the great body, the big house, maybe that's not the experience that I need. Right? So maybe when I'm chasing those things, what I am really doing is chasing decoys that will actually keep me from acquiring the life that I should have, right? So I am actually putting shackles on myself and attaching myself to illusions that I'm pursuing because they are not right for me. They might be right for somebody else, but maybe they're not right for ourselves. Maybe all of the things that I'm chasing, what am I doing? I'm just blindfolding my consciousness and keeping myself from evolving. So it's important to know who you are before you know what you need. And many people are mistaken. We make mistakes all the time. Sometimes we believe that what we want is what we need. And that is not always the case, right? So we go through life and we interact with hundreds, thousands of people. And we like to think that we know them very well, right? So if I were to ask you, how well do you know your neighbors?
How well what?
You know your neighbors. I can tell you this, my town has about 800 people. That's it. And I can tell you that there are neighbors I've never spoken to, right? So what about our best friends? Do we know our best friends? I don't know. Like, if you were to ask me what keeps my best friend awake at night, I probably don't have an answer. But there are people that we really know, right? or parents, or siblings, or kids. I mean, if you have kids, you gotta know your kids, right? If they are somewhere staring into nothing, you know exactly what they're thinking. Yes? No? So getting to know someone is not as easy as we thought, right? Last year, I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in Brazil, and I spent a lot of time with my parents. They're on the farm, so we had nothing to do but to talk. And we were talking about all kinds of things, so I asked all kinds of questions, things that I had never asked before. I asked them about their childhood, what made them happy, some of the challenges they faced. One of my favorite ones, how did you guys feel when you found out you were pregnant with me? Yes. So, and I was asking questions about myself too. And at the end of this time that I spent with my parents, I came to a conclusion. I don't really know my parents. I don't know everything I need to know about them. I found so many new things about them that I had no idea. I found out my mother had frequented a Spiritist center for 2 years. I never knew that. Not in my wildest dreams I knew that. My favorite one, though. I knew that when I was born, I was pronounced dead. And I was resuscitated at birth. Well, I found out that I died again when I was 2. So I've been resuscitated twice. I didn't know that about myself. So what did that tell me? That I can also be a stranger to myself. It's complicated, right? So how do you change your life? If in order to change your life, you need to know who you are. But to know who you are, it's really not that easy, right? Who are you? If you ask me, who are you, and I say I am Huji, am I answering that question? Yes, but not really. Why? Because I am Huji now. But who was I the life before? Who was I the life before that? 10 lives ago, 30 lives ago, 50 lives ago? I don't know. I can't tell you right now. But that information also matters now, right? Because I need to know who I was before, who I am now, in order to change myself, to really live the life that I should be living, to really experience the things that I have to experience in order to continue to grow. So before we do any of that, what we need to do, Peter said this earlier today, this is not the place for us to come and be looking on your phone, but there's one thing that he said that we should be doing, which is looking inside. So the only way to really know who we are and who we have been is to have that inner connection with ourselves. There are insights, there are messages, things that we receive that show us exactly what we need to know, right? And that all have to do with reincarnation, living different lives, or spiritual guides. And we're going to touch a little bit on those topics as well.
I believe the main thing is that we mistake expectation with perspective. So expectation is not based on real facts, and we don't take too much time to put that on perspective. That way we can at least know where we are now. Are we going to be tomorrow? Kind of hard.
Yeah.
But if everything is on check, and we can do this check from time to time, makes it easier. Not easy per se.
But easier, yeah. We are so accustomed to living on the fast lane that sometimes we don't take the time to stop and think about what
85,000 thoughts a day.
About what matters the most, right? Which is what really matters at first is us. And then after we are good ourselves, then we can branch out, right? But we have to work on our houses first. Before, even if you're on the plane and you have a child, what do they say? Help yourself first to the mask, then you help your kids, right? So we have to be capable before we are able to do something. But people change their lives, right? They change their lives all the time. You hear this. You hear about people going through distances and becoming somebody that they weren't, or discovering a side of themselves that they never did. A great place to hear stories of transformation? Prisons. If you go to a prison, I guarantee you, you will hear many stories of transformations. Why? Because you don't have anything to do? You think that that's the reason? Why is it?
They have time to think about their lives.
They have time to think about their lives, but there's one more thing. Suffering. Pain, right? We don't have to suffer and we don't have to feel pain in order to grow and evolve. But suffering and pain is certain to give us that, right? So if you go to prison, they're not happy in there. They're very unhappy with the life they lived and with the life they have. So you hear these great stories of transformation, right? So turmoil, chaos. Everybody looks at chaos and turmoil as something bad, right? How many times have you heard this? He's going through a midlife crisis now. Oh, her life is chaotic. Oh, their life is a mess. You hear that, and you hear it as if it was a bad thing, like chaos and drama and all of this is so terrible, right? That it's so destructive. Yes, if you look at it as being destructive, it will be destructive. So it has to do with how you look at it, how you perceive things, right? But you can also see chaos, crisis, as a wake-up call, right? As a little insight. Why do you think we go through it so much? Because we are not doing the things that we should be doing. Because if we were not going to be dealing with a lot of chaos, right? Maybe organized chaos. But if your life is messy, when we're going through this kind of situations, we have two things that we need to realize. First, something is off, so we have to stop, breathe, assess, and think about what we need to do, right? But it's also a reason to be thankful. Why? Why would we be thankful for chaos and messy situations and drama? Because they are the best opportunity for change as well. Has everyone here remodeled a house? Can you remodel a house without breaking anything? It's impossible. So before you rebuild, you have to what? To break it down. So if your life is already a mess, you're halfway there. Say, hey, thank you for this opportunity. And make it work to your benefit, right? But people do that all the time. People change their lives around. And I love hearing stories of those who have done and who inspires us. If you read the Bible, you can go through the Bible and you have several stories of transformations, right? Job is a good one. He had everything, he lost everything, and then he acquired everything again. Great example of perseverance, right? Never gave up. Resilience, never gave up on God either. You have Paul of Tarsus, great story too. Great transformation. He went from persecuting Jesus and the early Christians to becoming one of the biggest apostles, right? But he was already a man of faith. He had moral values. So he had he had a case of misguided faith. But once he found his way, right, he was able to focus his energy and his attention into what he wanted, and he became a great apostle. Now, my favorite story, and personally the one that I think it's the biggest example of transformation, is Mary of Magdalene. And you can ask anybody about Mary of Magdalene, and they will have something to tell you. She's probably one of the most known personas of the Bible, right? People usually focus on who she was, or the one fact of her life that is known to everybody. And that's what everybody usually focuses on. So every time that you say Mary of Magdalene, most people will have something negative to think about, right? If you were to say to somebody, oh, you are just Mary Magdalene, are they going to think that you're saying something good to them? No, but they should, right? I wish there were more Mary of Magdalenes in the world. Like, I wish I was more like her. because of what she was able to do, how she was able to change her life. And I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for this woman to accomplish the things that she did, right? She came from the life. So this is the perfect example of somebody who was living the life that anybody would want. Money, right? Jewelry, the best wines, all kinds of comfort. She had everything. She had people behind her, cleaning the floor for her to step on. Whatever she wanted, she had. Until one day, when she is thinking that her world is perfect and there's nothing else for her to accomplish. Not too far from where she was, she heard Jesus speaking. And she stopped and she listened to what he was saying. And something changed inside of her. So that happiness that she felt, that contentment with the life that she led, like the money and the parties and the man showering her with gifts, all of a sudden all of that wasn't as bright anymore. Something had tricked, and she didn't really know what was going on. All of a sudden, she started to feel empty inside. And she kept thinking of that fisherman that she heard speaking. So she decided she wanted to talk to him. And she did. She went on a trip, and she went to meet Jesus. And she was at Simon Peter's house. Jesus was there. She walked in. And it was as if he had been waiting for her. So she didn't know how to act, obviously, right? So she's talking to a man that is inviting everybody to change their lives, to abandon this world of luxury and embrace a world that is humble and where you're helping others. How is he going to receive her? So he walks in. He goes, "Welcome, Mary." So she was silent for a little bit, and she goes, "I need to talk to you. I heard you speaking, and ever since I heard you speaking, something changed inside of me. I have everything that I need. I don't think I need anything. I have all the love that I could get, all the riches, but after I heard what you were saying, I feel a little empty." So Jesus tells her that she was listening to her soul, right? So her body had everything. This life had given her everything. But she was missing love. And she couldn't understand, how am I missing love when I have all of these people who love me, who adore me, who idolizes me? So she sat and she talked to Jesus for a long time, cried a lot. And then before she left, she goes, "I want to change my life. I want to turn my life around. And I want to answer your call. I want to receive your invitation. And I want to be one of your sheep, but I am afraid. I don't know if I can do it. What will God think of me?" And then Jesus looks at her and he goes, "Mary, what do you think of your father? Who do you take your father to be? There is nothing you can do that would keep him from loving you, because when he looks at you, he sees who you will be, not who you are now. He already knows who you are, who you will be. So God welcomes you. But I got to tell you, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be hard. You're going to leave the life that you have, and you're going to be dragged through the mud. People will scream at you. People will curse at you. Some people will not understand what you're doing. It's a very narrow road, the road that you're trying to walk. And she goes, "Jesus, look at me and tell me. If you look at me, you see that I am thirsty for this change. I am thirsty for this love." So Jesus looked at her, but not really at her. So he looked through her and listened to the thoughts of her soul. And he was quiet for a little bit. And he just looked at her and he said, "You're ready." And she left that meeting. Never once again she looked back at the life that she had. And she lost everything. She went from having everything to having to beg for food, to having to work all kinds of jobs just so she could live, survive. And once Jesus was crucified and all the apostles left, then she really had no one. She was completely abandoned. Nobody would speak to her. The only thing that she would get would be advances from, the same man that she used to be related to before. So that was another battle that she had to fight. Until one day she found purpose again. A group of sick men with leprosy came into the city looking for Jesus. So they expelled them from the city, said that they were not welcome there, and that Jesus was dead. So she heard this commotion, she went and she met with this group, and then she started to teach them. She went from this rich woman to living in the valley of the leprosy. That's where she ended her life. So Mary of Magdalene is the perfect example of somebody who was living a great life, who was living the life that she wanted, that she searched for, but who towards the end she understood that she wasn't living the life that she should be living. Now, what about us, right? Are we living the life that we should be living, or are we chasing the wrong dreams and not listening to our souls, right? And that's why we should be more like Mary Magdalene. And I was using her story to help us understand exactly what we have to do. So if we understand how she was capable of doing that transformation, what is this that she tuned into that brought her so much transformation? Maybe we can do a little bit of that to ourselves. Not to the extent that she did, but maybe we can do one thing, right? And this is where this book comes into place. Because somebody can sit here and say, well, but she had Jesus with her. He was her guide. He was helping her during that walk while she had Jesus with her for a few years, right? And then he wasn't around anymore. But we kind of have a guide too. So the story behind this book is very interesting. It says Emmanuel that a friendly heart reached out to them and asked them in the spiritual world if they had anything that could help us here in the material world lead a better life. A few pages that could talk to our spirits, right, about things of the spirit. And we all come to places like this center looking for that guide, right? We all have reasons to be at a spiritual center or to go to a church, right? Sometimes we're looking for God or a better understanding of the afterlife. What happens after we die? Is there something after that? Or maybe we're trying to be more spiritual. Some people hear about reincarnation. They are curious to find out what exactly is reincarnation. Or others are here for healing, right? So we all come here for answers, which tonight's a little different, right? If you guys had answers and you were hoping for, if you had questions and you're hoping for answers, I think that tonight you're getting more questions. But sometimes that's a good thing, right? Sometimes it's not about getting the answers, but knowing what to ask and where to look for. So Emmanuel was saying that a friendly heart came and asked them for a guide, for something that they could use, right? And I really like this sentence here. A few pages that spoke to the Spirit about problems of the Spirit. Well, this is interesting, right? Why would somebody from here be asking the spiritual world for pages that spoke to the Spirit about things of the Spirit, not something from the spirit talking to the human that we are? Any guess?
Because we're spirit.
Exactly. Right there.
We're being humans. We are spirits.
Because we are being humans now, that's right? But at the end of the day, we are spirits. So all the trials that we have here, all the problems that we have here, they are not human problems. They are not human trials. They are spiritual problems and trials. And that's why, right, that we need to speak to the Spirit about problems of the Spirit. How many of us used to think of, how many people still think that once you die, all your problems are over? That's so wrong, right? And we know that. Once we die, our problems follow us to the other side. All the trials that we had here, we'll bring them with us. It follows us. It doesn't stay here. And we continue to work on them on the other side. It's not because we're not here that the work is over. It's completely the opposite. When we leave here and we go to our spiritual world, we work a lot harder. This is the easy part. So if we were in school, right, this would be the day that you go in just to take your test. The rest of the year, you're studying and planning for that, and that's exactly how it happens. When we are on the other side, we're planning and we're studying and we're working to accomplish things here. And when we come over here, we have a list of tasks that we need to accomplish. And those tasks is what will one day, if we're unable to do it, become a trial, right? Become a challenge. Or the things that we're not able to simply do, that we postpone and postpone and postpone and postpone and avoid and avoid and avoid. One day they turn into pain, that pain turns into suffering, and then that suffering turns into growth. But at the end of the day, it is a win-win situation, right? Sorry. Okay, so if our troubles, for those who are not familiar with Spiritism, every time that we talk about something, I'm going to try to bring some concepts that will help you understand the reasoning behind it. And if you guys have questions once we're done and we're outside, you can look for anybody with a badge and ask questions, and everyone will be happy to share with you guys what we know. Okay? So, in the Spirit's book, written by Allan Kardec, it says that all spirits are created simple and unaware, meaning lacking all knowledge, right? So when we are created, we know nothing. All spirits will eventually become perfect, no matter how long the process may take. They may remain stationary, but they never regress. When they finish a trial, they learn a lesson of that trial and never forget it. And one more thing here. There can be no merit without struggle. All of this ties into what we were talking about before, that your problems here follow you to the other side, right? So we are all created without any knowledge. We're just simple and ignorant, lacking all knowledge, right? And as we start to evolve, we start to acquire all this knowledge. So we are learning on the spiritual side, and then we have to come over here and we have to show that we know. The problem is that everything that we have planned on the other side, we have forgotten. They're not really easy to be recalled, right? Because our memory is interesting. There's different types of memory. So we have the memory that of this life that is stored in our brain, mostly, right? So the important facts are kept in here. Some are put aside and others are discarded. But all of this information also travels to our perispirit, which then takes it to our souls, which works more like a database. So our soul is where our mind is. So everything that we experience in this lifetime gets to our souls, right? To our minds. Everything from all the other lifetimes are also stored in our minds. So as we start to evolve and as we start to grow and to develop, and as a spirit, we start to acquire this knowledge. We come here to put the knowledge into practice. What we can't accomplish goes right back with us, and then we have to come right back out here and do it again. And sometimes a trial can last several lifetimes. It isn't necessarily that what you weren't able to accomplish here, you come back next time and get to do it. No, it might take 15 lives before you are able to go back to that one task. So things start to accumulate, all right? So continue here. So he goes, well, that friend asked me for, so I thought about a spoken manuscript. So this is Emmanuel saying that once the Spirit was asking him for this pages, this text, he thought about a manuscript that they use in their schools of reincarnation, right? To teach those on their way to the cradle between death and rebirth. So this book here, they use in the spiritual side, and it's used to help us plan our next life. So in the schools of reincarnation, which are places where spirits go to, they get to look at the lives they have lived before, they get to understand who they are, they get to put a plan together, and then they come over to execute that plan. And so those are the school of reincarnation mentioned here. Now remember that I told you that our mind is stored in our soul, right? So for those of you who don't understand what this is, so our spirit is surrounded by a spiritual body, which is called the perispirit. So in the spirit's book we have, is the spirit uncovered or is it surrounded by a substance of some kind, as postulated by some? So the spirit who answers the question explains, as the seed of a fruit is surrounded by the perisperm, the spirit is surrounded by an envelope that by analogy may be called the perispirit. So the perispirit is very important because it's the tool that the soul uses to communicate with the body. The perispirit is what links our soul to our body. So our soul works on the perispirit that in turns work on the body. Anything that the body experiences is transferred into the perispirit that goes into our souls as well. So they are always communicating. So the perispirit is very important, especially when we want to go inside ourselves and try to learn more about ourselves. That information that we are recalling, it's coming to us from our soul through our perispirit. So it gets laid down, right? So it works both ways. So now we're talking about the teachings here, right? The information that we're getting from our perispirit. These humble teachings bloom in our brains like flowers on the ground that don't really belong to the garden that is holding them, as they are in truth born from God, who commands the sun and the earth, the water and air, the wind and nourishment to fill them with color, form, beauty, and perfume. The more you practice you start to know yourself, the more you want to discover about yourself, who you have been, who you are now, right? You have to go inside. And sometimes you start to receive insights, right? Thoughts that come to your mind and you don't really know where they're coming from. So this is exactly what this is talking about. So these thoughts that are coming to your mind, those insights that you are receiving, right? That are blossoming. It's beautiful how they are using poetry in here to talk about those insights that we get from the spiritual world, right? So these humble teachings bloom in our brains, right? So the garden image that they're using here, that's our brains. So like flowers on the ground that don't really belong to the garden. So the thoughts are coming into our heads, right? They are not really coming from us, but they are coming to us because they are what? They're aiding us in our growth and evolution, right? So they are what? They're gifts from God. So there are spiritual guides, there are friends in the spiritual world, or messages directly from God that are teaching us how to live our lives. So we can lead a great life by observing these thoughts. But the problem here is that if good spirits can give us insights on how to live a better life, right, there might be other messages coming into us that are trying to do the opposite. And that's why it's very important to know how to weed our garden. That's why it's very important to meditate, to concentrate, to focus, right? to do things that help us clear our mind, because when those thoughts are coming to you, you have to be able to separate them, what is garbage and what is meant for you, right? And you can only do that if you really observe your thoughts, if you really know who you are and what is coming from you. So here, do spirits influence our thoughts and actions? They often direct both. Their influence is greater than you think, which is what we're just talking about. So if you're getting all these messages, where are they coming from? It's important for you to understand that, right? And do we have any of our own original thoughts while others are suggested to us? Your soul thinks. You surely have noticed that many thoughts, and frequently conflicting ones, come to your mind regarding the same subject at the exact same time. In such cases, some of these ideas are your own. So it's either coming from you, right? Your soul's trying to give you a message. And some are ours, meaning from the spiritual side. So if they belong to the spiritual world, you need to be able to differentiate one from the other. The evolved ones to the less perfect spirits, right? So this leads you to feelings of uncertainty because you have two conflicting ideas in your mind. Now, one thing it's important for us to know is that our thoughts create the life we search, right? To reflexes of ourselves. And one day, after the passing of millennia, combining infinite wisdom and love, our reflex will be the reflex of the thoughts and life of our Father. So if you really want to know who you are, if we really want to know who we are, we have to listen to our thoughts, right? But not the thoughts that are coming from our brains, because these thoughts, what is happening here, is only telling us about the life that we have now. So we have to listen to the thoughts that are coming from our souls, right? Because those thoughts are different. They are a mixture of knowledge and infinite love, right? And it's the thought process that God himself uses, the supreme intelligence. So if you observe your thoughts, they will be what? They will be a reflex of ourselves. And the interesting part here, right, is that they will start to evolve, because these are coming from our soul. It has your complete history there, who you have been and who you are. And one day, who you will be will also be there. So what this is trying to tell us, and what I think is very beautiful, right? It says, these reflexes of ourselves, right? And then one day, after the passing of millennia, so after we are perfecting and continue to perfect ourselves, right? Combining all this wisdom and all the love, so our reflex will be the reflex of the thoughts and life of our Father. It's meaning that one day we will bring ourselves to the point, to the place where everything that is emanating from our soul will be line in line with the thoughts and the life of our Father and our Creator. We're running out of time. Thank you very much, folks.